We're fast forwarding the count. There we go. We're going to blame Ian for last week.
Yeah. Do it.
Just kidding. Boom. There we are. We are live. Jeremy Knight, the Night Group, your favorite Real Migos host. See, I changed it up. I came in. You guys thought I was going to say favorite Austin realtor, but Real Migos. We got some great guests today. We have Travis Mitchell, the mayor of Kyle. Welcome to the channel. I am so excited to have you. We had a conversation the other day, and now you are on the channel. I'm so excited. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, you know, not too many public figures are willing to get on a channel where we talk about hard-hitting topics like the weather. I'm just kidding. But I'm glad to have you. Ian of Austin, welcome back, my friend. How was the Hawaiian vacation you just took?
I mean, it's gorgeous, but there are some small disappointments, but I'll save those stories for later. But overall, It's an incredible place. I feel like everybody should go there.
Okay. All right.
Thanks for having me back.
All right. Well, welcome back. Yeah, we missed you last week, and we missed all of you last week. My man, my homie in Austin. What's up, Mr. Kevin Knight?
I'm sorry, friends?
The magic mullet. I apologize.
The magic mullet. It's magical. Full of knowledge.
Benevolent beret.
With a new beret.
Yeah.
It's got bling on the side.
Travis, we got to come up with a cool name for you now that you're on the channel. We'll come up with it. If you have a cool name for Mr. Travis Mitchell, the mayor, Senor Mayor.
Mr. T.
Yeah, Mr. T. Yeah.
Mr. T.
Yeah, there you go. Mr. T. I like that. All right. So we have a really great topic today. It is about the affordability, kind of issues that are happening in Central Texas. Obviously, Austin is not the cheapest place in Texas to purchase. But I've long said my most underrated place in Central Texas to buy is in Kyle. And now we got the mayor himself. So super excited about that. Does anybody, let me ask you, hold on real quick though. Is Treviso, is that in Kyle?
It's close.
No.
Sorry, the Treviso is a long-hated neighborhood on this channel, so I'm glad we brought it on. Okay, Mr. Mayor, welcome. So I sent over some questions or kind of what we're going to talk about. Oh, should we talk about the merch first? Does anybody want to hear about the merch that's coming out?
Merch.
Yeah, if you want to hear about the merch, drop it in the comments below. We will bring it up. Where is the cheapest in Texas? Believe it or not, Kyle is one of the more affordable places to purchase as of right now. We'll go over the numbers in a second. David, the guy who said that he would punch me in the face. Welcome back, man. So excited to have you back. Just nail those comments, man. All right. So Mr. Mayor, tell us about what's going on in Kyle, first of all, and what you're seeing, is affordability things that are on the horizon.
Well, I think that the city of Kyle's in kind of an interesting position. Every suburb of Austin, your videos have noted of late, is growing exponentially. And I've been the mayor of Kyle and on the Kyle City Council now for 5 years. And the first 4 years, I would have said that the city of Kyle was growing exponentially. And this year, I would say it, and it would mean something different, because what we're experiencing right now is extremely unprecedented. City of Kyle and every main city in the Austin MSA is growing. It's growing like crazy. So that's what it's like to live in Kyle. Pretty much every square inch of our town feels like it's under construction or is under plans for construction. And depending on who you are or what your perspective is, perhaps that's a good thing, something to be optimistic about, or maybe it brings a lot of challenges as well.
Yeah, and that's let me bring you back here. Hold on. I was trying to do two things at once, man. Sorry. There we go. Exit solo. Jeez. All right, hold on. All right, sorry. Jeremy's doing too many things at once already. So I think that's a problem right now that we're facing, right? Everywhere is growing like crazy. It's not just Austin. In fact, there was an article that recently came out saying that more people were moving outside of Austin than in Austin. All right. And, housing availability is part of that. As my two astute colleagues can attest that it is very hard to buy a house in Austin right now. But as far as things in Kyle right now, are you seeing prices? I'm going to show the numbers, but are you seeing the quick escalation in prices hurting Kyle in the near future? Or what are some of the maybe silver linings from the pandemic? Sorry, you can't say the C word on here. It's the pandemic or the 2020 thing. They start demonetizing for talking about the C word. So what are some highlights that you think have actually happened or silver linings from the pandemic?
That's interesting. YouTube is an interesting platform, isn't it? Gosh. City of Kyle, so a year ago, if you go back 12 months, 13 months ago, late March, 1st of April, 2020, it felt like the future was just over. It was hard to imagine how we would ever come out of the pandemic and life be the same again. Strangely enough, though, because of Austin being situated in such a great place in the state of Texas, and the just job numbers just started flooding in probably 6 months into the pandemic. And we realized that we could not let off, because the future was here and the growth was happening just right away. I mean, I would say it was a 6-month lull, and all it did was stack projects up. And so now we have even more projects going off at the same time, because everybody wants to be on the I-35 corridor. They want to be from Georgetown to San Antonio, elsewhere as well. But silver lining is more of our residents are staying home now. And if you're a bedroom community, if you think of it like, a city like Kyle, where, the statistics is, more than 80% of our workforce commutes out of town. That has an impact on the quality of life and our ability to produce our own economic vitality in our community, because there's not as much of a lunch rush. People go and experience community and economic activity outside of our city. And it just can create problems. But all of a sudden the pandemic comes, and a lot of our residents who would typically commute out, all of a sudden are finding it more beneficial to stay home and work. And what that does is essentially it's like bringing jobs home. I mean, it's the strangest thing, but if you commute out of town, the job that you're going to, wherever you're going, that's where that employment is. And now if you're staying at home, we just created a job. Because you've created that economic engine right here in our own town. So that's the silver lining, and that's absolutely measurable and extremely beneficial. It's good for automobile traffic. It's good for local businesses, and more quality of life. You could spend more time with your family. The majority of Kyle is dual income families. We have a lot of kids here in Kyle. Mom or dad or a parent gets to stay home. They get to be more involved in their kids' life. Their expenses go down. it's really not that rosy, but that's the silver lining for sure.
So that being said, if people are shopping more and buying more, right? So they're staying at home, so they're not, driving downtown and spending their dollars in downtown Austin anymore. They're spending their dollars in Kyle, right? So how does that affect Austin? If you have all these cities, subsidiary cities around Austin, and people are no longer going into downtown Austin, what does that end up doing to downtown Austin, the vitality of downtown Austin? Does downtown Austin still grow? Does those dollars just stay in our, Kyle, Buda, Manor, wherever people are moving to? Do those dollars stay there? Like, what does that do for Austin?
Well, I can't speak for Austin. If you look at their budgets and the way their budgets continue to grow, their taxable value continues to grow, their sales tax numbers continue to grow. Austin seems to be doing just fine.
Yeah. I love Luis. Thank you. So we already have some really great comments in here. Keep them coming. And David, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Very, very nice for saying you were not going to troll tonight. Appreciate you, man. I can take a punch. So I like that. All right. So, so what does that mean for Kyle though? So if Kyle's got more tax dollars coming in, the tax base is staying there. What does that do? What happens with Kyle, and what happens with that tax-based dollar, right? So more people are spending money, more tax dollars are staying in Kyle. So that means more tax revenue for the city of Kyle. What happens to those dollars that are being spent in Kyle now?
Well, if you got to start with the understanding that yes, more people are staying home, but our city is exploding with growth. So when I say exploding with growth, our commercial valuations, the amount of commercial property we have on the ground just in this last year increased by nearly 50%. That's more than the last 6 years combined. Well, we don't have those dollars yet, the dollars that come in from commercial development. But it's certainly right to think if you're a suburb, you should be trying to attract commercial development, because commercial development brings in revenues that don't have just as much of an outflow as what comes in. So if you think about like a single family subdivision, for example, typically speaking, single family detached subdivisions produce a net loss for the city. So if some great new subdivision like Treviso, the subdivision you guys seem to think is amazing, comes to town, the question is,
well, I would say
what?
Not amazing.
Oh, not amazing.
No.
Just has an amazing name.
It has an amazing name. It is a great community. There's just so many people that continually ask about Treviso, and it's overplayed. It's like I feel, I can't speak for everyone, it's the most overrated community, but that's just me.
Well, from the standpoint of a taxing jurisdiction,
yeah.
When a subdivision like that comes into existence, there are a lot of expenses that must be incurred. You have policing expenses, but more than that, you bring on all the liabilities of the infrastructure and the maintenance of that infrastructure. And the suburban dream is not efficient for getting the maximum value out of your infrastructure investment. And so that's just the nature of the game. So we always look at it as single family detached. Every time we get one of those, how are we offsetting that? Because there is a quality of life. The reason people love to live in the suburbs is because there are amenities, there are parks, there are golf courses, there are you can get to the gas station and the HEB without too much trouble. You have certain amenities, and you can afford to live in, hopefully, a fairly large house and raise a family. Maybe a house that's cheaper than what you would get if you were, in the greater, or in the main Austin area. All those things are good, but what we have to focus on as the city of Kyle is not getting overweighted towards single family residential, because it can seem like, oh, look at all this new money, and it's like, well, look at all these new roads that you have to build, and how are you going to pay for those? Because a new subdivision comes in on the outside of town. There's a bad road from the city to that subdivision. The residents who live there or who are about to move in, they want to see that road fixed, but they want to see that road fixed before the tax dollars have come in to pay for fixing the road. So what do? You have to borrow the money. It's the only way. And then you amortize the cost of that road back out over the life of the subdivision, so that more people can come online and split the cost of that road. So you're really kind of forced to play kind of a juggling act.
So let me ask you this though. So if the amount of dollars is coming in, right? So more people are buying and more people are spending their money in town. Obviously this year, and I will bring up, I wish I would have brought it up online right now. But I mean, here's a good example. The median price in Kyle, this is saying for Hays County, is now at $350. So the median price for Kyle is kind of in that ballpark, right? We had what was her name? Amanda Rickman on a few weeks ago, and she was telling us the median price now in Kyle was around $361. This is saying Hays is up 25%. So what that means is we just are now seeing, and I'll pull up the article in a second while you're talking, more. We will see the largest increase in property taxes in Texas this year just because of what happened with the market last year. So does that dollars go towards making more roads, where do all those dollars go? And I know you're going to say, 40 or 50% of it goes to the schools. Okay, fine. But where does the rest of those dollars go? I think that's what a lot of people want to know.
Well, the cities generally take about 20% of the overall tax bill. So if you have a $10,000 tax bill on your house, the average city is going to take about $2,000 out of that. They have to then take that $2,000 and provide all these different kinds of services. So just to give you kind of a sense of whether or not that's good or bad. But it goes a lot back to what I was saying earlier. When all this growth is happening, you would think, oh, there's all this new money and that's going to put downward pressure on taxes. And that can be true if the growth that's coming is profitable, sustainable growth. But if it's a whole lot of subdivisions, for example, generally you're going to find yourself in a worse position than had the growth just not happened and you not had to pay for the road. So like maybe a subdivision like a Cool Springs, that's a newer subdivision coming into town. Maybe it's projected to bring in $15 million in property taxes over the life, over a 20-year period. All the homes get taxed. Well, if you have to build a $15 million road right up front, that takes all of that money just to pay for the road, and then you still haven't provided them with any of the other types of services. So it's just not as simple as saying because of the growth, there's new money coming in, and therefore it's going to automatically put downward pressure on your taxes. The school districts, it's the same way. They're like, yeah, great, we have $600 million new dollars to come in, but we also have 2,000 new students. That's the size of a middle school. It's honestly, our school district grows by the size of an elementary or two elementaries nearly every single year right now. So we're constantly having to put out bonds just to build schools. So I mean, you can imagine that's not going to create this euphoric. Taxes are plunging because there's so many new people coming to town.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the thing. Most people, especially myself, when I'm making videos, it's like we see the tax dollars and what people are spending on taxes. But the guys on this channel, we like to know where our tax dollars go and what it's going towards. And so it's great that you came on and can, help explain this so people kind of understand as well, because what most people don't understand when they move here is they go, okay, no income tax, sweet. I'm going to live that sweet Texas life. It's going to be great. And then, holy crap, what's up with my property taxes? Or if they're renting, right, and then a new bond passed and it creates more tax dollars. And so property taxes are higher. And then you're like, all right, I'm done renting. I'm going to go buy. And now you're in this market, which is crazy. You're like, well, shit, this is no longer affordable. I can't buy this. Right. And so that's where now we need to find a balance with affordability. So one of the questions, there's a question I want to bring up in a second, but just so people can see on the screen right here, I have kind of the new based averages, what's put out by the Austin Statesman. So City of Kyle is seeing a 9.7% increase. I think it's, if you look at your property tax values, I guarantee you it's higher than 9.7, but that's the average. San Marcos is 10%, which is next to it. Buda is 10%. So a lot of people are going to see a 10% increase in their property taxes this year. But there's a great question up here. It was... this was a good one though. Merch for Treviso in the next 3 years waiting list. That was a good one. Oh God, where'd it go? It was such a good one. Guys, I'm going to put this question, but do you have questions for Travis?
Always. I think one of the questions I would have is, so you said that the profitability wasn't high in your residential sector. So where is the profitability the highest for the city?
So
what do we want?
Well, there's different questions. What's most profitable for a city, and what's most profitable based up for your tax base? So generally speaking, probably the most profitable residential development type you can put in for a city is multifamily. I'm sure people love hearing that. People in the suburbs generally don't like multifamily. But if you put people in smaller units, you put them in more dense areas, you build vertically, you have to install less infrastructure. The police response calls are all to the same general address, so they're not having to drive more streets. And so it works. It works out well for cities. But do any of y'all have kids? Jeremy?
Me and Kevin.
I do.
All right. Do you have more than one?
No, just
not that I know of.
No, just one that you know of? All right. Well, then, so I have three. I have three sons. And so I live in a single family detached house, about 1,900 square feet or something like that. Well, all three of my kids go to public schools. Per child, can you imagine what does it take per student to train and teach my children? Well, it's a whole lot more than the property taxes I pay, right? So that's the dynamic that we're talking about. So I'm a net loss. Every family, everyone that comes into town with more than one child, generally speaking, is going to pull down more resources than they give out in tax revenue, or in taxing to the city. So if you have more than one kid, you should probably never complain about school taxes, because generally speaking, you're getting a good deal.
Damn, I need more kids.
Well,
I need more dependents.
So, but you get a sense, hopefully, that the argument of affordability is complicated. That's really all I'm trying to say, is it's complicated. Right. You can a multifamily, how many kids are coming in? We have to pay to educate those kids, and what kind of social services are required, and various other components. The city of Austin subsidizes the suburbs in a lot of things, because there are liabilities that are sort of collective liabilities that we all kind of take, like homelessness, for example, that the suburbs, just generally speaking, we say we're going to leave the problem of solving homelessness to the city of Austin. And so they've got all their bond measures and their millions that they're spending that the suburbs don't even have to spend. I'm off topic, but the point is, affordability is complicated, and we're all in a big living system together. But maybe, Ian, to answer your question best, is that you want sales tax producing commercial investment, because it hits every kind of metric you're looking for. It brings quality of life, because hopefully the businesses that are coming into town provide some great service to the community. It brings commercial property valuations, which are generally more valuable than they cost in terms of tax revenue than they cost in services. And they don't bring children. They bring employment. And so that's why we've been really just laser focused on commercial development, really, since I've been here.
So that's really incredible. And that's I have a follow-up question that I posted in there.
Yep, I got you. Go.
There you go. What are the three most exciting large developments? So similar to the Domain or Mueller that people know about in Austin. And so something obviously close to or in Kyle.
And this is why I really wanted to bring you on too, because we've said on this channel, we've talked about Leander and all the stuff they're doing in Leander. We've talked about Georgetown, all the stuff they're doing in Georgetown. Hutto is now bringing in stuff, Round Rock. And I've long said, in fact, in our conversation, if you look at the tiers of cities, everybody always assumes Kyle's down really low. And that's why I've always said it's the most underrated. So I'm glad you brought this question, Ian, because I think there's a lot of things that Kyle has done to really embrace growth and really push itself forward. So thanks for asking this question. To answer this question, you're on the spot now, Senor T.
I think there's some good developments going on in the city of Kyle. We have some nice higher end single family projects going on, like Cypress Forest, Six Creeks on the west side, Cool Springs on the east side, as well as a lot of other just traditional single family developments all throughout. But Six Creeks and Cypress Forest are the two developments that are setting the standard for sort of the top end executive style housing that we're trying to attract here, because we're also trying to attract employers. So that those would be some pretty good projects that I would point to. There's some big developments that are out there. You already now,
like in Buta's got Amazon, right? They have the fulfillment center there. What other companies is Kyle trying to woo, right, to get some of this commercial land?
Well, if you go back 5 years ago, the city of Kyle really didn't have very many employers, and we didn't have industrial space. We had strip I-35 retail, and that was about it. But we had a couple things going for us that perhaps some of the other communities didn't. Number one was the population was growing dramatically. We knew that once we started to get to the 50,000 number and beyond, you start to get that sort of mass of people that can, all of a sudden you have a real workforce that a company can come and invest in. So that was always good. But we also did a good job of building out our infrastructure, our road infrastructure, to make way for commercial development. So we built 1626 all the way to the north end of town. So from Seton Hospital, it's Kyle Parkway, but it's also 1626, all the way to the north end of town. That was a project that was envisioned, a long time ago, but was paid for really without a ton of partnership. There was good partnership, but the city we had to pay for almost all of that major road. And now 1626 is getting completed and has been completed from the north end of town through Buda all the way up to the 45 toll. It was a county project at that point with state level financing. So we feel like we were able to see maybe a little bit further longer ago to put those big road networks in, Kohler's Crossing, 2770, 1626. Now we have the road network and the infrastructure set up to attract those companies and that commercial investment. So we have something like 68 active economic development leads. And so economic development, they don't, residential developers are not leads. Leads are Amazon and others, those types. And we're at an all-time high right now in terms of the amount of companies that we're currently courting. We're kind of getting to a point right now where for the first time, maybe in a long time, the tables have kind of flipped, and we're no longer kind of acting out of a mentality of being desperate, but much more being a little bit picky, a little bit choosy, what's best for the community. Maybe we don't need this, that, or the other. That's kind of new, and that's kind of exciting, frankly.
So I want to make a comment about 1626, but I also want to make sure we stay on the topic of affordability. I guess it kind of correlates too, but so 1626, in my opinion, my degree is actually geography, urban planning. So when I see 1626, and I know this isn't just a Kyle build, right? It's a county build. You have Uptown coming in. So my biggest critique about Uptown, I think it's a great development. I love it. But my biggest critique about Uptown is that it's not closer to I-35. And you don't really touch I-35 traffic. And we chatted about this a little bit. Because if you look at the domain has like kind of two thoroughfares that come through there. You have 183 and then you have Mopac. My critique isn't necessarily the location's not next to I-35, because it does have access through Kohler's Crossing and 1626. My critique is, and this is a county thing, so right, it's not necessarily Kyle, but 1626 is 4 lanes now. After all this money being dumped into it, it needs to be 6 lanes. Right. Because if you're going to have developments like Lennar's putting in that huge development off Kohler's Crossing, you're anticipating more traffic coming from I-35 to come to this development. Now you're going to just see a bottleneck with people coming in. And if the whole goal is to get people from South Austin to come to Uptown, that's going to be a challenge, because first they got to get through Buda. Now there's going to be a ton of light. There's already 2 or 3 lights in Buda. they're going to have to bring more lights as their you know, and make the access easier. So I think Uptown's a great project. The location of it with 1626 might be a problem. Any thoughts on that? As far as maybe I'm wrong in some aspect, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think you're wrong.
Okay, that's fine. That's totally fine.
No, I'm sorry, I can't help it. You're not wrong. You know, so we certainly have folks that come and are looking around and kicking the tires, and they like some of what we're doing in the Plum Creek area, but wish that but are more interested in being on I-35. You know, there's kind of two schools of thought. There's the people who have to have I-35 because they feel like without it they can't be successful, and then there's the kind of groups that are wanting to make and establish more of a sense of place. Sense of place is very difficult to establish along I-35. If you look at all the cities up and down the corridor, the ones that have succeeded the most have major attractions off the interstate. Buta's downtown is being revitalized. San Marcos is downtown, and various other areas in San Marcos are really set up and doing well. They're not right on I-35. So you can go down to New Braunfels, you can go to Seguin. They're just different. There's just different schools of thoughts, I suppose. But the intersection of 1626, 2770, Bowler's Crossing, those are really solid infrastructures, and you know those roads they're capable. I-35 is not going to be any better. We see 1626 as a pretty good alternative option for people who are wanting to commute.
Oh, I don't touch 35 anymore. I'll take 1626 all day.
All day long, right?
Yeah.
And you know, so it opens up Southwest Austin. It opens up Buda. It opens up the Hill Country to us. There's a lot of subdivisions up there that if we can have the right amenities and the right use of land, we think we'll be able to attract folks to come to that particular area. So, you know, the most successful restaurant in Hays County right now, or certainly within in the greater Kyle area, is Hays City Store, and that's way off west of 150 at a much smaller intersection, and that place is just busting at the seams. So
I've well promoted Hays City Store on this channel. By now, I feel like the people there should know me. I'm there almost every Sunday. I talk about them religiously on this channel. Kevin, you're very quiet over there, man. I want to hear some good thoughts from you because your mullet, I know your mullet's full of good stuff tonight. What's up? What's on Kevin's mind?
I'm actually just super, not that I'm surprised, but I'm happy that Travis has such a passion about the city of Kyle. I think it says a lot for him as a representative of the city about that he knows what's going on and that they're embracing it. One of the things I'm always afraid of with cities like Kyle is that they just kind of like let whatever's happen to them. Yes. Right. And then like, as Correct. It comes, they're like, well, we have these people here now. Let's just figure out a way to serve them. When if you can't get ahead of that, you're in a situation like Austin is today. Like eventually it rolls so hard and so fast that you can't keep up with the growth. And then you're constantly playing catch up with the projects you're doing for the reason Travis is talking about is they can never get enough infrastructure money up front. Right.
How do you get ahead of it?
Yeah. How do you get ahead of it?
How do you get ahead of it? Well, it's a talking point all over every city talks about, every election, managing growth in every suburban town around Austin. That's the first, second, and third issue, managing growth. There's nothing else. How do you do it? And, to Jeremy's point from the very beginning, oh, wow, we're experiencing this boom of population and values are going up. What do you do with all the extra money? And it's like, well, there you go. There's a big question, and it's just not as simple as let's just not invest in the community, and because then you are just letting development sort of roll over you.
I guess. Go ahead. I didn't interrupt you.
Well, just the city of Kyle has been sort of at the bullseye of developer interest for a long time, but it's always a pigeonholed sort of specific type of developer interest. They view Kyle as a place where people make their living decision based on affordability, and so they build to the lowest standard, the cheapest standard of development. And so, okay, cool. Maybe that's the way we handle affordability. We just build the absolute cheapest that we can. But it's just not my sense of what the best way to set your city up long term is just to let developers build to the bottom dollar.
I don't think
which
that
they will.
I don't think that is the plan for Kyle. So I think if you, like you said, if you let it happen the way it's going to happen, Kyle is at the very edge of what most people would consider the metro area, and probably will for a long time. So naturally their mind defaults to, well, it needs to be more affordable, because if I'm going to live that far away from Austin, then I don't want to pay as much money. But I think it's wrong in doing that. Some of the best places I've lived around larger cities have not been in the city necessarily, but have right outside of the city. And guess what? Kyle, it's already pretty much there, but soon enough, it's going to be literally right outside of the massive growth of Austin. I love that you guys are doing more with this, like Six Creeks, and this, what was the other one that we were talking about?
Cypress Forest.
Like those are legitimate, contending, decent, income, somewhere in between affordable, but maybe a little bit more committed home purchase. I love to see Kyle doing more of that, because I think that you'll start getting more of the mid-tier commercial developers then, and that's how you grow, build more momentum, I think, for the city. You know what I mean? Long term.
Well, and I think, just from an outside perspective, somebody who actually really, I do a lot of business in Kyle, Buda, and Dripping Springs. But what I like about Kyle is that Uptown project, the stuff they're doing off Kohler's Crossing, while I feel Uptown should be closer to 35, what it does do is brings more people to that side of the town, and more development to that side of the town. So the property values over there will go up, but then that also goes back to the other side of it, of the pendulum of affordability. So what is Kyle doing to help with kind of this affordability? Because you've seen prices, and the prices of wages show were like 12% up, but if you look at the overall for the county, it's 25%. So what are some of the things? Is it just going to have to build, more dense, more multifamily? So what are some of the things that help that?
Well, I would say the number one issue of facing affordability right now is a supply and demand issue. If you want to boil it all down, it's a supply and demand issue. So how do you put downward pressure on prices? Thank you. Sorry, the lights went off automatically here. How do you put downward pressure on affordability? You increase supply. And that's not necessarily a popular or happy opinion for folks who live here. They don't necessarily want to see more homes. But if the city artificially constrains development in a way that allows for demand to sort of just overwhelm the town, you will see in a very short period of time, prices will escalate. So that's one factor. The other factor is, it's like, oh, well, property values went up by 10%. Do you know what the cost of building a road did this last year? It went up by more than 10%. So it's just, we give out raises, so as well to our staff. Everything, the price going up for residents, it's also a phenomenon that affects taxing jurisdictions like schools and like the city of Kyle. So everything we're trying to do right now is more expensive by a lot than what we were trying to do even a year ago. It's not a simple solution.
This question is kind of out of left field, but what's the unemployment rate right now, if in Kyle?
Good question.
We've always been on the low end. So typically whatever the unemployment rate for the Austin MSA is, we're going to be right at that number. So in our areas, it's always low.
Yeah, that's the one thing. The Austin unemployment rate, for all the cities that were hit really hard by the pandemic last year, Austin, the unemployment rate shot up to 12%, right? And then is now back down under 5%, or hovering around 5%. So, and a lot of that has to do with the amount of people that are moving here, which also is pushing up prices, which is affecting the amount of inventory that's available. Obviously, the craziest thing to me, when it comes to inventory, is anytime I had a client that I was like, all right, you're going to be under 300. Here's the places we can look in this price point. You got Kyle, Manor, wherever. You can't find anything in Kyle anymore. There's no inventory. It's like 0.4 of a month of inventory. It's about the same as Austin, which is just crazy to me. I would like to make a point. Master Jedi has asked several times. He is moving to Bastrop. So if you had to do a Kyle versus Bastrop video, what would the highlights for Kyle versus Bastrop be?
I'm much more keen on comparing myself to the interstate cities, but
Like Gerald?
have a lot. Yeah, like Gerald, I guess. Sure. I have a lot of love for Bastrop, so I think you got two good choices there. It just depends on, look. I think people make a lot of decisions about where they live based on the price point, and that's a today kind of question. But I would always counsel people to try to get a sense before you make a decision of like what the city is all about and what's the plans of the city. How is it going to develop? What's it up to? What's the city up to? Is this city got plans? Is this city being proactive and aggressive to try to tackle problems and invest in quality of life initiatives that are meaningful or not? And then also, is this city on the start of an investment sort of pattern that's going to be really healthy for someone who owns a single family, house, or is it potentially not so much? And Kyle, I think if anybody's paying attention, would likely say this city is right on the cusp of bringing in a whole lot more and development types that are beyond just more subdivisions coming in everywhere. If you come drive around Kyle right now, in particular, you'll see P. Terry's and Starbucks being built and Torchy's Tacos being built.
Is there an In-N-Out being built?
Well,
That's dead.
I was talking about.
Kyle's dead.
Yeah, I had a joke there. I had a joke there.
There's 17 Whataburgers, and so you're fine, right?
Are you ready for a hot seat question?
Let's go.
Or are we going to save those for a while?
No, I Travis has held out pretty well, so let's give him some hot seat questions.
I wouldn't do this either if I didn't feel like he was confident in talking about it.
Yeah,
go for it, man. Hit him.
One of the things you mentioned was
not physically.
Punch. I got something in my teeth. Hold on. One of the things you mentioned is like when they're developing subdivisions, like when the homes are coming in, you guys are saying, hey, it costs us a lot more money as a city to provide that infrastructure. So the new subdivision developments cost us way more money. Is that why the tax rates for the new developments are so high down there?
That's not a hot seat question. It's a great question.
That was pretty easy.
I mean, it's accountability question. Like, cause like I'm looking at the house, like Six Creeks, great community, $630,000, and the tax rate's 2.91.
Same thing with Cypress Forest is really high. Great, both great neighborhoods, but yeah, I mean it's a higher tax rate.
I mean, that's not affordable at all.
High, 2.54.
From a relative working class standpoint, if you even talk about the median income, that's 2 Austin median incomes that would be required to afford that home. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the infrastructure necessary to build a subdivision can be paid for in a variety of ways. Some of them are more transparent and some of them are less transparent. The most transparent way is for the city to pay for all of the infrastructure and then absorb that cost into the overall tax rate. The less transparent way is the way that happens the most, and it is that the city tells the developer that the developer has to pay. And oftentimes the infrastructure is regional infrastructure that the city just says it can't afford to pay. And so special districts get created like PIDs and MUDs and various other types of special districts. And what those do is they create bonding capacity for the developer so that they can get access to millions of dollars up front before the homes are built, and then build out some of that infrastructure around the development. Well, that money has to get paid back, and it gets paid back through assessments and special taxes that don't impact the main primary tax rate, but that impact more the developments, specifically the people who are going to live there. So if you live in Six Creeks, for example, you're going to pay probably a 90-cent PID tax rate as opposed to a city tax rate. And that money goes to repay the debt that was borrowed when Six Creeks started so that they could put that infrastructure in place.
I just feel like over time, I feel like that response, as much as I was commending you guys for city planning, I feel like that response to growth, I I think is a short-sighted view of getting the growth done in a way that works. And I think long-term.
I didn't give you a view. I just gave you the two different ways that.
No,
I'll tell
I'm
you
just
which one
saying,
I think is best.
no, I understand that. I'm not saying that you do or don't, and I don't know the inner workings of what the city of Kyle. Obviously, the city of Kyle, as much as they're invested in, and it's every city. It's not just Kyle. Every city, as much as they're invested in the people and the growth, it's still a business. Like they have to run it. It has to be at least somewhat profitable, or else the government has to subsidize them enough to offset that. But my worry when I see stuff like this, same with 1826 or 1626. I'm sorry, too close. See, how long before that's an entire toll road? My concern is like that everybody, the attitude of, well, if you're going to be here, you're going to pay for it kind of deal, I think drives people away over time and puts a black eye on the city. It's already happening in places like Hutto. Like we talk about Hutto and Siena all the time. It's a toll road always in and out, and every subdivision's a mud. So, what are you guys as a community, as a city plan, are you guys keeping those things in mind, or do you even discuss those?
Oh, the majority of my day, every day, is spent dealing with developers. And development projects and infrastructure projects associated with development proposals. So development drives infrastructure spending. So that's the basics. Like you have to start there. If there is no new development, it is very difficult in the modern America to finance and fund improvements to a city. So maybe it's best to think about the city of Kyle, and you backtrack to the year, let's say 2006, when we became a home rule city. At that time, our population was about 15,000 people. Well, I'm from Gatesville, Texas. Do y'all know where Gatesville, Texas is?
I do not.
Heard of Gatesville? It's in Corio County, which is a couple counties north of here. It's off I-35, west of Waco, about an hour. The population of Gatesville, Texas, when I was born, was 15,000 people. The population of Gatesville, Texas in 2021 is about 15,000 people. So this city has not grown. The city I'm from has not grown. And all of their infrastructure has gotten older and older and older. Their pipes are getting broken. Their roads are not, and they are desperate. A new development, a new subdivision is like just the most incredible thing, because all of a sudden you've got some money to come in that you can use to help maybe pay for upgrading infrastructure. And because if the development doesn't come, then you're really looking at a tax increase. But it's a tax increase without a corresponding increase in the home values, because you're just treading water. So it's kind of pick your poison here. And, the values of these properties are going up tremendously because development and supply and demand, and there's just interest and people want to be here. And it does drive the values up, but it also creates opportunities for investment. So on the special districts thing and the toll roads, I could talk a long period of time about that, but it also comes down to sort of philosophy and preference.
Well, the only people that win that battle, and I can't say that I don't feel this way, because in my mind, I also have a developer's mindset, but the only people that win that battle are the developers. They win on all counts. The city wants it and needs it. The developer reaps the benefits because somebody's going to pay for it for them to bring them in there, and then the people long term are going to take the burden of all the costs. That's the problem. That's, I guess, the biggest problem that I have with city planning is, like, literally the only one that's winning that deal is the developer. The city's not winning that deal. You just mentioned it's cost you more to have that,
Yeah, and families aren't winning.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you got to imagine, though, just to kick back on that, cities do win, right? They get a house. Like, if you can get an affordable house, if you get an affordable house in good schools, then you are in essence winning, and your values will go up. But I understand what Kevin's saying. The immediate winner and the one who's going to win the most is definitely a developer. Like,
this has happened and happening in Dripping Springs. I talk about this all the time. I bought land in Dripping Springs and I was going to develop it, and then we sold it, because what happens out there is, I've been for years, and I had the mindset too, because we thought the same thing. You're like, hey, I really want to offer an affordable product. And we went into that whole project thinking we were going to offer an affordable product. And then every other developer does. But when it comes down to the land that you have and what people are willing to pay, it's exactly what you said earlier. It was supply and demand. If the demand is always outstripping supply, the prices are always going to remain high. So these developers they're not going to offer $100,000 homes when they can sell a home now in Kyle for $600,000. That's precedent, right? So
yes, but they also can't build $100,000 home.
No, I
supply
don't mean
demand
100.
is
Yeah, I don't mean 100. I mean
right.
entry level home,
It's a-
200-300.
Yeah, it's just supply demand problems or in imbalances affect more than just the home price.
Mhm.
If there are more people that want to move here, in let's say the greater Austin area or Texas, then all of a sudden every development that's trying to get greenlit, they're buying wood, they're trying to employ people, and their costs are going up at the same time. So the rise in costs that you're seeing, 50% rise in wood price of wood, that's the same consequence of a supply demand imbalance in the area. So it's just not complicated or readily apparent to me, at least, exactly how you magically it's like one comes with the other. That's why I brought up Gatesville, because
Yeah.
in Gatesville, Texas, life's pretty good and home values aren't going up, but your taxes aren't really going up either. There's also not new job opportunities. There's not new parks being built. Roads aren't being widened. And that's just the life that a lot of people like. And I would imagine in my hometown, if it all of a sudden started growing crazy like Kyle, the people that live there would get frustrated too, because the values of their homes would start going up because of supply demand issues.
No, I think this is the beginning of a macro. It's not even the beginning. We're in the midst of a macro trend. Like if you're looking at the macro trend of urban development, if you look at the macro trend of urban development over the course of this city, like if you were to do like a heat map, a histogram and a heat map over time of where people are moving, they're moving consistently out of these communities like Gatesville and into the Austins. These communities, whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 100 years, will be completely dead. There will be no one living in these cities at all, and everyone will be in the urban areas or the outlying areas. I'm very, very certain of it. So that's what I'm saying is by the time you turn around and look, you're paying the price to have that lifestyle. I mean, the people that are there are paying the price to have that lifestyle. So,
but I mean, I don't know Gatesville very well, but if you look at the areas even further outside of Austin, like Seguin, prices in Seguin are crazy. The outside areas, I had a client less than 2 years ago. We purchased 16 acres in San Marcos for $160 and just sold it in multiple offers over $330, like not even 2 years later. So, Gatesville is probably, a little bit different scenario because it's off I-35 in the middle of nowhere. No offense, but the I-35 corridor, the areas around the I-34 corridor become the largest metroplex in the entire U.S., from San Antonio pretty much to Temple. So I want to get to this question right here. I think Cameron put up one of the best questions I've seen on here. Do you foresee extreme water shortages with the increased growth in Austin and its suburbs?
No.
Oh, can you elaborate?
Yeah, that was a good answer. Yeah.
No, the answer is actually no. And the reason is because the city of Kyle and Buda and San Marcos in 2007 formed what's called the Hayes-Caldwell Public Utility Authority, the HCPUA, which is now the Alliance Regional Water Authority. Government peeps, they love their acronyms. It's a conglomerate group of taxing entities that are funding one very large regional water project coming from the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer in Gonzales County. It's a pipe this big around, and it's a sandy aquifer with more capacity than what we have projected for 50 years of growth. So the phase 1 and phase 2 plan, the two major trunk lines coming from the Carrizo.
Is that
what's
coming down the 150? Is that what they're putting in down the 150, or is that something else?
West? No, that's a natural gas pipeline.
Okay,
that's
right.
Kinder Morgan.
Okay.
So that's not supplying anything to us other than maybe I guess we could get a natural gas tap, but no, that's going to the coast pipe. So no, we're coming in from the east side. It's 40-50 miles of major water infrastructure, and it's coming online in 2 years time. So our water bills are pretty high in this area, in large part because we are pre-funding the construction necessary to bring it. Here you go again with affordability, though. Water is a great example of the affordability problem. People complain about their high water bills, but this is the decision that a city is forced to deal with. We know that our population is that we're pushing 60,000, but we know within some short amount of time, our population is going to double. and we do not have water for them currently. The people who want to come, there's no water. So how do you get the water? Well, you don't say, well, let's just get the water infrastructure for, let's say, the next 3 years of people, like a 2-inch water line. You can't do that. You have to build to scale. You have to build with 20 years worth of growth in mind. But all the expenses associated with bringing that water infrastructure online, and this is a $500 million project, those expenses have to be borne by the people who are here now, even though the reason to develop the project is underway is to make way for the people who are coming here in the future, who have not put a penny into the system. But that's a problem that we have to deal with. So we go after SWIFT loans. We go after economies of scale by bringing in other cities and jurisdictions to try to lower our each individual city's per capita cost to bring that water in. But ultimately, we're sort of bound to make this project happen so that we can continue to provide water. And it does have it puts upward pressure when the city is in its growth phase, because you're having to plan for development and people that aren't yet here, and you got to pay for it now, which is also an interesting argument about debt. Do you borrow that money, or do you wait until you have the cash to pay for it? And you would think borrowing money is bad, and paying.
You got
for
that
everything
2020
with cash is
Fedia.
good.
What are you talking about?
But if I have a $100 million project that's designed to be to help bring in 100,000 new people that don't live here now, if I pay for it all with cash right now, I got all that money from the people who live here right now. That's upward pressure on taxes, not downward pressure. If I borrow the money, I amortize the cost of that project out over the life of the loan. That's also deferring the cost of that project so that it can be paid back as the growth is coming. So that's why you see jurisdictions oftentimes looking more favorable to these low interest infrastructure debt projects, because they make a whole lot more sense for us in this period of rapid growth than if we just tried to pay cash for it or raise taxes and pay cash for it.
It's definitely not easy, like I wish we had an easy button for a lot of these issues, but if we had an easy button, then we wouldn't need government. So I guess
can I ask a question, Travis?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said something in there, and you said projected growth. I would like to know what your 50-year projection is for population. If you can answer that.
That's a good question.
It depends on how densely we build, but you have to look at your overall land mass, and you try to sort of extract out from that what your end population might look like. The city of Kyle's at full build out, a little over 200,000 people.
Okay.
So we have a lot of land.
Yeah.
We have nearly as much land as San Marcos, actually pretty comparable, more than Buda. But San Marcos developed obviously a lot faster. They were the county seat. They brought in a major university. They have a couple rivers, and just they just were way ahead of us. But we are rapidly catching because we have so much land available. But yeah, 200,000, that's the number.
Excellent.
Wow.
I don't know when we get there. It's market conditions.
What
change,
are we at today?
Call it 60.
Good to know.
So you're going to more than triple in the next 50 years. You're more than
Probably,
quadruple in the next.
Mhm.
Interesting. That's a lot of homes for Ian to sell. So,
but you got to put today's crazy prices in the context of a city of 200,000 people that's on the way to,
Yeah. Well, we also got to get that amount of people more homes. And as Master Jedi had said earlier, he's sick and tired of the lumber cost excuse. But Razor ATX says, finally got offer accepted on our dream home, now dealing with roof fixed before close after hail. This is going to be one of the craziest hail seasons I've heard. In fact, my insurance guy, Paul from Allstate, I call him Paul State, called me. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, Paul Guerrero. He's a man. He actually called me and said to lower my deductible for hail season this year. So you might want to call your insurance person and drop that down. Just much stress before. Well, congratulations. I know this market's tough. Thank you for the $5. Appreciate you there. And then Cameron said, thank you for your great response as well. Thank you, Cameron, for that. Here was another great question. Did you guys have another question first before I ask this one?
I've got lots of questions, but
free advice, pro tip on hail is park in your garage.
Yeah.
Well, if
What
you're,
if you have
hey,
too many cars for the storage space? in
Yeah.
your garage?
But-
Exactly. You want
but
to talk
it-
about that? I could talk about that too.
but if you're in a mixed use,
What is a garage?
neighborhood,
Yeah.
it's tougher. What about the Edwards Aquifer? Is that tapped out? I have no information on that.
Yes.
I do.
What's
It
that?
is.
It
It is
is.
tapped out. That's why. That's the problem that Dripping Springs has, is they're trying to upcharge everybody. I don't know what the water tap cost out there is right now, but last I checked, it was like $10,000 per tap. And like 6,000 of that's a usage fee to be a part of the aquifer, because they're afraid it's going to run out. I mean, people in Dripping Springs have been saying this for years, right? That they're running out of water.
Yeah.
It's all the same aquifer. It's all the same aquifer, right?
Yeah. I've heard it since 2012, since I moved here. So,
Well, there's two Trinities over Western, or there's two aquifers over Western Hays County. There's the Barton Springs Edwards Aquifer, and then there's the Hays Trinity Aquifer, and they're kind of like this on top of
Right.
each other.
Mhm.
So there's access to multiple sources of ground of aquifer water, as well as surface
Rose.
water. And so, yeah, but it's challenging. The further west you go, the more challenging it becomes. Which is why, again, the interstate cities in particular have bound to get together with this big plan to bring water in from the Carrizo, which is a completely different water source with a lot more capacity, recharges. It's sandy, so Edwards goes up and down because it's shale or it's rock. So it just, you use it goes down, and it fills up fast too. That's why the recharge zone matters so much. But you want that more stable supply that and that's what we're focused on, at least up and down the freeway.
Mark my words, I'm going to be an expert on aquifers by the next time we talk.
It's a good point.
This is really interesting. I mean,
Well, a lot of it has to do with who has control over the aquifers as well. There are special districts. There are special districts that have a lot of control over the aquifers, and frankly, they need to have a certain amount of control, because developers are all over here. So it's not just about homeowners. Developers want to come in, and in Wimberley, they had a situation a few years ago where electropurification tried to drill through the Edwards Aquifer into the Trinity, and there was jurisdictionally, it was the Edwards Aquifer, and they had all these rules, and they were trying to get into the Trinity where there was no regulation because of the way the boundaries are drawn, and they could have pumped it dry, and they tried. And so there's challenges when development wants to drill down and pull water out. You've got to monitor it and make sure that the system can stay healthy. And the Edwards in particular,
You're saying
that much.
You're saying you can't drink sand?
Yeah.
I'm saying that the comments made about watching out for developers are real,
Yeah.
and you got to watch out for them.
yeah, maybe we should also stop selling water from Lake Travis downstream to rice farmers too. Huh?
Well, most of the surface water is already spoken for. So like, you can't go
Whatever
get
that
a
means.
permit at Canyon Lake. That's where we get a lot of our surface water, as well as San Marcos. It's actually Lake Dunlop through Canyon Lake to San Marcos up to Kyle. We have a big source of water there. But if we went back and said we need more water out of Canyon Lake, the equations don't work. And they say, sorry, it's permitted to capacity. You got to find water elsewhere. That's when cities start to hit the panic button.
I know this is old data, but I heard this before, and I don't remember what the cost is, but generally speaking, the water that we sell downstream to rice farmers is 3 times the usage as the entire metro Austin area uses out of Lake Travis. So that's the kind of stuff that, I think we all are concerned about them long term. This is more than just a little bit of planning here and there. These are huge environmental and macroeconomic factors that are all at play right now. And I understand, I respect you, because you're having to balance all of these and still remain profitable as a business too. So, I don't think any of us really would want to be in the position that you're in right now. We're just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. We're enjoying the armchair mayoral jobs as we are now. So I like this comment about Prop A and Prop B, because I've brought up Prop A and Prop B. There's one person that likes to always barb in the comments with me, but will never answer a straight question about Prop A and Prop B. So this is a good question. So obviously Prop A, Prop B is the rail lines. I don't think Kyle's even going to see any access to these rail lines in the future. So is there any plans like a Prop A or a Prop B? Well, Prop B doesn't, Prop B is more of for parks and stuff, and we've talked about parks in the past. But for Prop A, is there any like new rail? Since if Kyle is going to grow, is there going to be more rail or what's the word I'm looking for? More public transportation. There you go.
Well, public transportation is very low on the demand list in Kyle. So if you think about it, it sounds good. Let's get some rail, maybe rail that goes straight into Austin so you can bypass traffic. The problem is the amount of money you have to spend in order to create that infrastructure relative to the amount of people who would use it is so disproportional. You want to talk about affordability? We had at one point we were doing a carts program where you could twice a week you could call and get a bus route and go into Austin for various things. And we were doing the math and it was something like $200 per rider per ride. You could fly them to Las Vegas and back cheaper than you could bus them into Austin and back based on the way these contracts work. And rail's just as bad. It's a really cool concept, but you have to have a lot of riders in order to make it an actually affordable.
Can you say that again about contracts? What part of that's the contract? Who's the contract owner on that?
On what? I'm sorry.
You said it's based on the contracts between.
Yeah. So cities have contracts with various public transportation providers. Right. Cap Metro and carts and various other types. Those contracts oftentimes have large sums that you pay them regardless of ridership.
I get that.
And so that's just in the suburbs, it's particularly unaffordable or wasteful from the standpoint of the amount of money you spend versus the people that actually use the product. So we got rid of all of that. Yeah. Now we have what's called the Uber 314 program. Uber 314, Georgetown's got something similar. We're the only two towns in the MSA who do this. But you can get $10 subsidized off an Uber ride in city. So from point to point within Kyle, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You use the app, the City of Kyle's app, and your fare is $3.14. So if you need to go to the store, wherever, anytime. So it's not bound by the traditional constraints of rail and bus systems that have very strict schedules. It's a free-flowing system, so it provides a lot of value. But even then, the amount of interest is pretty low. Whose
idea was that? And did they get a raise?
Yeah,
because I'm actually I'm a huge fan of crowdsourcing urban development issues. I really do. I mean, that what you were mentioning about Cap Metro and public transportation, this is one of the reasons I'm usually skeptical about public transportation.
You are a fan of toll roads?
No. I mean, see, it's hard for me to justify like one full opinion on one versus other. I think in the right situations, they're proper. Like the reason that toll road exists over by Hutto and around is because I know that the development planners wanted to push traffic off of 35 and around Austin. And then because that traffic technically isn't people living in Austin, that should be truckers and people traveling, paying the toll to get around Austin. And that's partly true, but that's not all true anymore because so many people live off the toll road now that they're having to pay the penalty for what was originally developed to be a bypass of Austin for real transportation, not local residents. So that's why I feel different about that. But this stuff reminds me of this video about the ice cream machines at McDonald's. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
I just watched that yesterday.
It's in my thumbnails, Andy.
Oh my God, I just watched that yesterday.
But I've always been skeptical about that. Like, listen, I've seen both ends of this. I'm a resident and consumer, but I'm also in development side, so I get to see both ends of this coin. And these kind of things can be so corrupt, even with city projects. It's so often that you see people that are associated with the city that also have a vested interest in the developers making money off of them. So that's why I asked these questions about who's paying for that. And look, he's gone now. He dropped.
No, I'm trying to make the lights.
He's trying to get the lights on. I almost made that same joke, but I was like, I don't want
to. That's Lil Wayne walking off the set. I'm not dealing with this anymore.
It was Birdman. Come on.
It was Birdman. Oh man. Yeah.
Anyway,
well, the developer profit motive is there. I don't consider that to be really a moral issue, though. I don't think of developers as being immoral because they're operating in the system that was created and trying to create a profit for themselves.
I'm not just saying it's
you know.
just the developer, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's
I think it's the developer
human nature
and the city,
Mhm.
not this your city specifically. I'm not saying your city. I'm saying every city does this, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's legal or not legal, whether they're doing it for their own benefit or not, it's natural that they work together, and they are the ones together that are profitable in these ventures.
Developers are underneath a lot of control when it comes to cities. Cities do have a lot of control, less so now than they used to, because the state, every legislative session takes power away from cities in some way, shape, or form. They think that's good for them. They try to make it seem like cities are bad, but the truth is they're just consolidating power for themselves. The ones that are creating the opportunities for developers to profit the most are at the state level. So if you wanted to look for who's in developers' pockets, I would encourage you to look at the state level. At the local level, we're trying to manage just a tidal wave. I mean, it's just a tidal wave of developers coming in, and we like to say no. We like to be hard-headed. We like to, set a high bar. But at the same time, what we try to do is be fair and consistent and communicate clearly so that we're not jerking developers around, because they take a lot of risk. Developers also, they have a profit motive, but they also are spending a lot of money that can go sideways. And, we've seen that happen multiple times. So
I know we're going down conspiracy routes here, but yeah, I think about this stuff all the time. I heard this years ago, and I don't know the exact percentage, but a overwhelming percentage of the title loan companies in this state are owned by people that are legislators in Texas government. Did you know that?
Makes sense. I know quite a few.
It's like 74% of the title loan companies in the state of Texas are owned by people that are in the government.
Well, title work is relationship work.
No, not title work. Title loan companies, quick money places.
Wow.
Payday loans?
Yeah.
Well, title companies are very similar in the same way.
So. Like Friday loans, because those folks, they go get their paycheck on Friday, and then they have to pay off the next week with the previous paycheck, or vice versa. So,
well, I didn't know that.
Those are super predatory. Yeah. I want to take a quick pause. So, everybody in the comments, you're writing some really good comments. I really do like this one about has the mayor taken a bribe. We'll get to that one in a second.
He's not going to admit that.
I'm just messing around. But there's a lot of good housing and affordability questions. Keep asking those in the chats because we will answer those. I think we're just having a really good conversation. So I hate busting up the flow of this conversation, but the housing questions, keep dropping those in. We will get to those. Also, keep in mind, we are going to talk merch here in a little bit. There's a merch drop happening. The merch is alive. It's real. Travis is going to be the first one to purchase it. So we're super excited about that, but keep the questions coming about housing. Steve had a really good one. We're going to get to this one in a minute about affordability with all these investors. We'll get to those. So sorry, I jumped in the middle of that. Kevin, I broke up your train of thought, but go for it.
I want to ask one more question to Travis. Nope. So how long before you run for mayor of Austin?
Yeah,
I'm serious, actually.
I hear there'll be an opening soon.
Would you want that job?
No.
Why not? Why not?
Well, I'm pretty laser focused on the issues affecting Kyle and the generally when you get into a big urban city, the political leaders in that city are facing a lot of different types of challenges that aren't really what I think I'm best built to solve.
So what you're saying is that you're actually I shouldn't even say that, actually. I probably would get a lot of
I like where I think you're going to go with it.
You're saying that you're actually you have too high of a level of integrity to put yourself in that position. Yeah. Where you're tempted to be compromised, right?
No, I wouldn't say that, but I would say I'd probably be frustrated because I'm real pragmatic, and that works in a town like Kyle in the suburbs. I don't know if it works in the big cities with all the super PACs and all the political interest for all kinds of various things. I don't get too interested in the hot button topics of the day.
Well, I would vote for you.
So.
I would.
Nice.
I want to see how you're going to figure out the homeless issue in Austin, because this is a topic we've actually wanted to talk about on the channel. We've had a discussion to we have to be very careful because this is a very hot button topic. It's actually on the ballot. Another thing that's on the ballot today was giving Steve Adler more power. So that one is on the.
I had a lot of Austin friends texting me what my opinion of that one in particular was. Whether
yeah, okay, let's hear it.
Well, there's no perfect system.
Right.
Strong mayor versus council manager are just two very different types of government. Council manager spreads the power out among electeds and you're a little bit more incentivized to work collaboratively, under an ideal situation. And the elected officials funnel their the power or influence through a non-elected but appointed professional city manager who runs the day-to-day operation. So that's kind of just the general structure. I have no power or very little power that's different than just a regular council member. So everything I want to do, I have to get consensus. I have to get buy-in from my colleagues on the dais. That serves me well. It keeps me grounded. It also kind of helps us to cull out bad ideas and maybe overcome bad actors if there's one or two bad actors. When you transfer that into a strong mayor situation, the mayor has veto power in particular. So it's just an incredible amount of power that generally the mayor will then be appointing police chiefs, city administrators, and other things. So there's just a lot more politics concentrated around a single politician or a single elected official. And so, it stands to reason that if you have a very good mayor, that a strong mayor system might work the most ideal because it cuts through a lot of the inefficiencies, creates that strong leadership position where you want to get something done, you can get it done regardless of what anyone thinks. But conversely, if you're in a situation where the mayor's having a beef with the police association,
that happens.
Yeah,
it happens all the time.
Oh my goodness.
What do you do? So a good example is Houston, since we'll get out of the MSA, but you think about Mayor Turner in Houston, who I've met once. Seems like a nice person, but they had a huge issue with the firefighters and their pensions and various other things. And the mayor in that particular situation just had a lot of control, a lot. And so the question is that good or is that bad? And I think to each his own. For myself, I would support the current structure of council manager and having a weak mayor. I think for the reasons I stated, that's probably the best kind of system.
Jeremy, I have some breaking news that we need to share real quick. Okay.
Are you actually going to show your browser history? All right. Let's
You wish.
All those NFTs you just bought.
Look, our 3D printed homes, the answer to new skyrocketing real estate prices. No, that's not it. Advocates want to raise the minimum age for strippers to 21.
Yeah. No. 3D printed homes.
I'm just kidding. I was just joking. That's all.
We know you. We know.
So, okay. We know what you're looking at now. Jeez.
No, man. I was actually looking for the election results.
No. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, look, I going back to the, strong mayor, weak mayor, and that Travis works out. So he's definitely strong. I think, that's the problem with Houston and that whole scenario where the firefighters union, I have friends that are firefighters that live in Austin and work in Houston. And that was a very bad situation. And I don't think it got enough public play as it should have, because outside of Houston, I mean, we heard about it a little bit in Austin, but that was an interesting thing to happen. So, but staying on affordability, how do we keep people from going homeless? Especially, and how do we make homes affordable? Kevin just, said 3D printing. What other options are there? We talked about this earlier, but what other options for developments that are going to be affordable for people?
Wait, can I first ask also? Is there a homeless problem in Kyle?
No, they ship them all to Austin.
You can't be homeless in Kyle.
Oh,
or in any
suburb.
There's no place for you to go. So you can't.
Why? Can you explain why though?
That's a good question.
So if you're
because legally you can't be.
Yeah, well, yeah. Generally speaking, like the camping ordinance of Austin doesn't exist in the suburbs, so you're not going to find you're not going to find that. So Well, the suburbs are generally okay with the situation and that arrangement. So but that's what I was talking about, sort of collective burdens that we have as a society. And the challenge, the solutions to homelessness are multifaceted. And I don't think that it's within the scope of this conversation, but I wouldn't say that affordability is the number one driver of homelessness. I'm not sure that that's actually what most of the people that I've ever dealt with who are homeless didn't get there because their property taxes got too high. They got there for other reasons, and so it's just a challenging thing. But suburbs don't have the ability to provide real resources for homeless folks. Everything's up in Austin, so if you're homeless, you're not going to go out in the suburbs. But the main way we keep homeless folks away is we have an anti-panhandling ordinance. So you're not allowed on our streets to hold up signs requesting, selling trying to get sympathy and money.
So no more high school.
Do you get backlash on that?
Well, that is
folks.
No,
because you don't allow that.
Well, it's not in the news very often, but that's a policy that we put in place back in 2016 in my first year. And so it just depends on how you look at it. I think if we were the big city of Austin, I don't think I would necessarily say you have to have an anti-panhandling ordinance. But in the suburbs, we really don't have the ability to provide resources for those kind of folks. And so that's just the position that we've taken.
Elizabeth is right. It's a houseless crisis, not a homeless problem.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of really cool things going on to help the homeless right now. From a housing standpoint as well. There's some cool developments that are out there, sort of like being, there's one in East Austin where it's tiny homes, and essentially they're building little communities, and they're bringing folks off the street sort of one at a time and setting them up. And they're not giving them money because a lot of times the worst thing you can do for a homeless person is to give them money. They don't know what to do with it. They won't do anything good with it, but they do need a sense of self. They need a sense of stability and a way to get kind of back on their feet. And there are housing solutions and nonprofits and various development types that can help with that. It's just complicated, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I
it's just
understand.
complicated.
And that's like, this is such a hot topic that we tread very lightly around, because the moment that you tell people that you're not okay with the camping, then all of a sudden we're heartless assholes that don't give a shit about people, right? And it's unfortunate because you apparently have to decide one or the other. Like,
meanwhile, we donate and help Community First and Mobile Loaves and Fishes, donate time and all of that, but we're heartless assholes. Yes,
I think the truth is definitely that. Like, I hate the term homeless, because what that really means is classification of somebody that is maybe like not currently beneficial to the community or society, right? They're all just grouped into one group of people. But it's not just that they don't have homes. There's a lot more things that are going on that there are problems with. Right. They're dealing with addictions. They're dealing with probably mental issues, definitely mental issues that are unresolved. They're not getting that type of support. Like, giving them a roof is not the problem here. Giving them things is also not the problem. Getting them into systems that help them out, I think, is the bigger issue. And I'd like to see more. This is a completely different topic, but I'd like to see more of, like, the religious organizations and social organizations of the city focusing on that a little bit more than some of the other issues I think that they're prioritizing. If that's truly the case, instead of just saying, hey, we vote to not let them camp, like, let's actually go provide outreach to these places to provide that for them.
Well, here's the problem I have with the camping ordinance in Austin. Not that anybody in Austin needs my opinion on it, because I'm not a voter and it's not our issue right now. But when I see homeless camps under bridges and various things on sidewalks and in parks, what I see is infrastructure that was not built to house the homeless.
Yes, correct.
Being used to house the homeless. So there's no efficiency in that. There was no planning. The underpass on I-35 downtown right there on 7th Street, 6th Street, that area wasn't designed for homeless people. It was designed for a major freeway to go over the top with cars being able to go underneath. So that's not the ideal environment for homeless folks. So if we're saying, well, let's just put them there, then it just doesn't make sense to me.
Does Kyle have any subsidized government affordable housing, like Section 8?
Mm-hmm.
Section 8 subsidized, like?
Yeah, we have some very little Section 8 housing, but there's affordable housing it's just a buzzword. There are all different kinds of programs and that developers try to employ. And honestly, in the suburbs, affordable housing is what developers go to get the ability to get their projects financed, because you can get special financing for your projects from the federal government in particular, and you also get entitlements for tax exemptions and other types of entitlements that allow your project to be profitable, and sometimes wildly profitable. So when someone comes in to the city of Kyle and says, I want to do an affordable housing project, I don't think, that's so sweet, that's wonderful. It's generally what's motivating the developer is the ability to get access to cash and to subsidize their project with all different kinds of things. And so you got to be able to sniff those things out and then decide for yourself, like, how much affordable housing, subsidized housing do you really want? I had a long conversation with some developers today who are doing a project. They went through the whole spiel, talking about how great it was going to be, and at the very end, dropped the bomb that these units were going to be affordable housing. And it's like, now we understand, sort of where all this came from.
Because they wanted money. Because they wanted money to do it. Right.
Yeah, and they need cities to sign off, and essentially what we have to do is we have to take a vote to give them that permission to go after those dollars. Those tax credits and things.
Do you know how much of I'm asking you a lot of questions you probably have no idea, but like, do you know how much of Kyle is even left as far as like USDA eligible or opportunity zones? Like, do you even have many opportunity zones left down there?
Mm-mm. No, the opportunity zones went more towards San Marcos.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
What do you feel about that?
Well, I don't know. It just is what it is. It's over my head, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But we're certainly not lacking for developer interest. So whatever is causing the opportunity zones to get targeted by developers, it's not leaving us with nothing. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. One thing I don't notice maybe as much is like, I don't notice as much like industry there, right? Like manufacturing, warehouse. And I feel like then maybe it's because you guys have been passed over for the opportunity zones and the developers don't want to develop there if they have to pay a standard, development rate, right? So you guys are getting whatever. So it concerns me a little bit that whereas Kyle did have your reputation of being a place where you could afford to live and maybe transport into Austin, if all of the new houses are going to be $600,000, what's that going to do? Like, the people that were living in Kyle were commuting into Austin and providing service jobs there. Not all, but generally speaking, that was more common to do. But who's going to support the service jobs in Kyle if every house there that's newly built is $600,000?
I don't have an answer for that. I suppose,
Jeez, Travis.
Some people better.
Well, that's the same thing. But that's the same thing with downtown Austin. You have all these great restaurants, all these things downtown. But if it's so expensive, people can't live downtown. They have to live in Kyle or Buda, and then they have to commute in, and there's no affordable transportation. And we just talked about that. Transportation really isn't affordable. There's a cost associated with, somebody might be paying $1 to drive in, but there's a cost associated with that. That's where we're running into affordability, and it's not just Kyle, it's not just Buda, it's not just Manor. We don't expect you to have the answers to all these questions, but we definitely appreciate that you're giving it a shot, because the reality is that the whole board, like if you look at all of the city council of Austin, they don't have the answers. And there's 9 people on the city council, and then the mayor and the city manager. So, not the easiest question to answer, but I appreciate you trying.
Well, one strategy might be that you were going to go after a lot of different types of subsidies in order to artificially lower either the income levels that are required in order to live in a place, or the rents based on some kind of subsidy. But if you're taking money from one group of people and using it to lower the values, the cost of living for another group of people, maybe that's affordability. Maybe you're making inroads on affordability, but really you're just sort of washing the money around.
I'll tell you what it does is it forces, like, it's not necessarily, I think affordability for ownership is the concern here. It's not affordability necessarily, because what's going to happen is exactly what you said. The apartment complexes are the ones that are the ones that, financially, because of density, that's what you'd prefer to have because it doesn't cost as much in roads. So the reality is more of those, less people are going to be able to buy is the answer. More people are going to have to rent. They're going to have to live in the apartment complexes or rent a small house for somebody else, because naturally Austin's doing the same thing. Is Austin unaffordable? Yes. It looks like apparently Kyle is unaffordable now too, but everybody's going to have to rent.
Well, I wouldn't say it's unaffordable. It's just unaffordable for people that are looking under 225, under 250. That price point's become so high, and yes, today. But here's the thing too, and a lot of the comments there's been questions about investors who are purchasing. The investors are driving up the cost. In fact, before we get on the live stream, I talked about a comment that had been dropped on my YouTube channel. To summarize it, basically it says, do you feel unethical for helping investors who are taking away homes from other people? The reality, the answer to that question is only 20% of purchasers right now that are buying homes are investors. Right? Yes, there's the stories that come out where these investors buy up a whole neighborhood. That's on the developer and the builder for selling all of those to one entity. Right? That's not just the investor. It's both parties that agree to that contract for doing that. But the reality is that investors are iced out of a lot of builds right now. You can't, as an investor, I cannot buy anywhere in Kyle right now. I buy investment properties. I love buying new builds. I cannot buy an investment property. So investors are then put into that same category as the buyers that are forced to spend $150,000 over list price. I mean, all the comments in here, a lot of the comments are, I'm having such a hard time buying a home. I can't buy a home. It's really expensive. The reality is investors are put in that same position as well. But investors are going to stop at a certain point. Whereas buyers, unfortunately, that are going to procure that property now have to pay more. And so that's where I'm seeing the unaffordability happen, is that people are now stretching those limits. And what does that mean for the future of Austin? What does that mean for the future of Kyle? Do we start seeing foreclosures again? Because people are really at the limits. And, the answer is that the standard answer that I give and that all of us give is that mortgages are more heavily looked at. So it's not those predatory mortgages that happened in 2008. But I mean, any thoughts on that huge rant that I just went on?
I have a friend in Kyle who lives on the east side, and he has a home. He's owned it for about 10 years. It's gone way up in value, and what he realizes he can rent it and let that value keep going up. But he's changed his status in life. He's now single. He's widowed, and with no kids in the house. And so what he decided to do is go buy, and then he wants to do is buy in the new Lennar subdivision in the Uptown area. And he's going to buy a house with a rear detached garage, which is my favorite development home style.
Are they selling those yet?
Not yet. No, Lennar will be waiting, because if they go into contract now, they can get $20,000 more when they get their home finished. Yep. So they're just going to wait. But he's going to buy a rear detached with an additional dwelling unit, an ADU on the top of the garage, and he plans to live in there and then rent the house that he buys in the Lennar community to whoever would want to buy it. And so for him, he's looking at, well, I've got some opportunity here to go from 1 to 2 houses, and I'm not going to live in that primary house. So is he an investor? Is he somebody who's is he someone who's just being smart and taking advantage of the opportunities in front of him?
We are all investors.
Everyone who purchases,
that's exactly what I've said on this channel. If investors. You are purchasing a home, whether you're living in it, whether you're not living in it and renting it to somebody else, you are an investor. It's just like you're not buying a car as an investment, but you are buying a home as an investment, because at a certain point you want to make money back on it, right? It's an investment in your family. It's an investment in a lot of reasons. So to say that, I'm like this question here, do I feel 20% responsible? The reality is, as somebody who buys investment properties, I can't find anything to buy. I'm not buying in Austin. And somebody tried to make a really nasty comment about me that I own properties in Austin. And I made a video saying that not to buy in Austin. I'm not buying in Austin. I'm buying New Braunfels. That's the thing, is investors are having to look other places than Austin. if they're unless they want to get into that bidding war and pay 3% tax rate in a lot of the Kyle neighborhoods.
Yeah, and then let's step into the Migos School of Business classroom and let people know. So, because somebody mentioned this earlier, like they said, well, investors are driving up the prices of the houses. No, the hell they're not.
Yeah.
You know who's driving up the price? An investor. All of my investors have hard lines. You can only pay so much for a home relative to the rental rate that you're going to receive and still be able to make money. So they're actually keeping the prices in line with where the current rental rates are. You know who's driving the prices up is people that don't give a shit about how much money they pay for the house. And they'll just like, I need a house right now. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Those are the people that are driving up prices, right? And so what the investors are doing, and we're not evil. Everyone's an investor. Everybody that has a home. Like you have one share of Tesla, you're an investor. Congratulations. Right. It's same thing for this. If you own a house, even if you live in it, you're an investor. You're investing in a piece of property. But what they're doing, investors are coming in and purchasing properties that now make it affordable for people that maybe couldn't buy one to live in neighborhoods that they'd prefer to live in, but be able to rent until they get their financial feet under the ground. Like that's the larger economic scale here. It's not that we're evil investors driving prices up, because people think that the realtors are doing this too, that we have some evil scheme to go up bid all the prices to drive them up all the town. Like, why the hell would I do that?
Yeah, and exactly. And the mayor of Kyle wants prices to go up to get that sweet, sweet money. Just kidding.
Right.
Just kidding.
But this has been going on since It's a Wonderful Life, like, right? I mean, isn't that whole movie built around the premise of the evil developer trying to get a bunch more money and the little guy trying to provide something nice for himself and his family, right? It's always been the case, right? The little guy versus the big guy.
You know, so Travis, do you happen to know what the median income or salary range is for the people that are living in Kyle?
Yeah, our actual median income is relatively high. Recently, it was 88,000. I think it's pushing closer to 90 right now.
Is that dual income or single
Dual
income?
Yeah, it's median home value, and
Okay.
we are
That's
predominantly a dual income community. So we
that's
have kids, and it's higher than San Marcos because San Marcos has a lot of students, which drives the median income down. So you have to kind of consider it all, But yeah, our median income is quite high, but that's because both mom and dad generally work.
I love that. I wanted to ask that question because I want people to hear the reality of it, right? The income is higher than a lot of people would anticipate, right? Because a lot of people are saying, well, I can't afford in Austin. Well, Kyle, the income is high. The prices are catching up to what the income levels are.
Crazy.
And if you go anywhere else in the United States right now, it's not like Austin's the only hot market. We are one of the hottest, but that's everywhere. So where else can you move right now where people aren't paying over even a little bit or fighting for houses? It's not an Austin problem.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, this is a United States problem.
My mom's having to do that. She sold a house in Florida, got multiple offers over her ass, and now she's trying to buy somewhere else in Florida, and she's having to do the same thing on the other side. And we just talked. She's having to increase her budget by $50,000 just because she can't find anything.
Right,
It's everywhere.
There was another comment, somebody saying, "Well, I don't want to buy a house for $700,000 when it's only worth $500." No, it's not only worth $500; it's worth $700 because somebody's paying for it.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
The market sets the price. You don't want to pay for it.
Do you think that home is ever going to come back to 500?
No,
ever.
Well, that's right. That's the question.
Then it's not worth
and
500.
As an investor, you're putting in. What did you use, Kevin? Equity absorption. I love that term. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It will. Yeah. It's not going to go back down.
It's going to get there.
And even if it does, it dips. But you're not selling it today. Yeah. Now, if there was an emergency and you had to sell it, you might lose a little bit. You might, but maybe not. Maybe you don't lose anything.
Capitalism. This is a fun one tonight. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Oh, did you mute? Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. So Travis, I appreciate that you came on here. If you need to go, please, don't feel obligated to stay much longer. I know you have a lot going on. These live streams do kind of take sometimes 2 to 3 hours. So if you need to leave at a certain point, don't feel bad for leaving. We would probably say a lot of bad things about you once you leave, though. So no pressure.
I got notified that you were talking trash about our park system, and you said I was giddy about our parks. We haven't talked about our parks and what the city of Kyle's up to. But
Spit it.
funny.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Tell us about
I mean,
parks.
because that was like, so
I like parks. I'm always at the parks.
You said it was I think you said it was a bullshit use of money or something along those lines.
I don't necessarily use the word bullshit very often on this channel. I do watch my language, but I did say that when you're going to take that much money and put it on parks, there's other things you can do, especially when there's affordability isses. So
right.
I would
let's
love
talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about whether if I have $10 million available to me, what do I do with it? Do I give it back? Do I use it? Do I give it to a developer to subsidize lease rates? Do I build a park? Do I build a road? Do I build water? I mean, what do you do? How do you make those decisions? You know, well, let's think about this. If your city grows by 20% over the course of 5 years, which is probably something along the lines of where we're at, maybe even a little more, but you don't add any new parks, no new parks, the quality of life that each resident receives has to go down as it relates to their access to parks, because the population is growing and the parks systems are finite. So if your population increases by 20%, you would have to think, just to stay on pace, to provide no new value to the city, but just to stay on pace, you would need to spend or increase your park capacity or offerings by 20%, for example. So that's been kind of the mentality that we've had. But the city of Kyle has gone from a city the size of, very, very small, a few blocks, to the size that it is today. And we've never really invested in our park system. So if you go back over the course of the last 20 years and you look at the parks that we have and how much we spent at the time, not adjusting for inflation, it's something like $4.5 million on our 4 major parks that we have, which is very small. And so we're getting geared up right now to bring in really 4 new park systems to the city. So essentially doubling the total amount of parks in the city of Kyle. And from a standpoint of investment, much more than doubling, because we're spending a significant amount of money. The question is, do you spend your money synergistically? And I hate that word because people use it too much, but that is the exact appropriate word. When you're talking about spending money, what you want to do as a city is spend it in such a way that it provides a direct benefit and then an indirect benefit. And oftentimes the indirect benefit can far exceed the direct benefit. So some of the park systems that we're putting in are actually going into the Uptown development, which is, by the way, it's not going to be called Uptown once they actually start branding it, which will be probably. Is it going to be called
Soto Sopa?
No, it's called something different.
Sopa.
So,
what the heck?
But if we can put in a park in the middle of a development like that helps bring the development online faster, and that creates more of a sense of place, which then drives more development, which increases more taxes. And allows for more people to use the park, you have to think, well, maybe that's the best way to spend money, is to build a park, and then that park creates development opportunities outside of just the quality of life that you get by going to that park. So we have an entire northern side of our city that has no parks, that is not developed, that is now being developed. And so we are getting the opportunity to invest in some parks in a way that we really haven't before. And it's going to be nice, because how you build out your park says a lot about what you think about your community. And a town like ours that's fairly young, I think our median age is like 33. Certainly, we are, depending on how you count the students, we have the youngest population. We have the most children per capita of any of the cities in the Austin MSA. And so you would think that we would be pretty well served making sure that we're getting some parks. And you can't leave it just to the developers to build their little HOA parks, because you guys know that those HOA parks aren't available to everyone.
I think one of the most important things you said was that you have the most children per capita. That's huge. I don't think people know that.
We have a lot of kids. Hayes CISD has got 22,000 students. We have 3 6A schools in our school district.
Wow.
I love that. 6A. Can Kyle build a zoo?
A zoo?
Our Austin Zoo is, we're always like, let's drive to Dallas.
Yeah. Well, we just believe
I like the little Austin Zoo. I mean, it's fun for a 4 or 5-year-old, but yeah, once they get older, yeah.
It's basically a park with a couple birds.
so I
Maybe-
think it would be pretty cool that within probably 2 years' time, you'll be able to take your family out and spend the day going on walks within a park system that's urban or suburban. You know, it's surrounded by development. It's not you drive far away. It's in the middle of development, but it's free, and it's park infrastructure where your kids are playing on all kinds of water features and play features. And then at the same time, you get to go in and have a popsicle or a brunch or a lunch or something, or maybe even a dinner or go shopping. Those are the types of synergies that you need in order to create prosperity, which is probably the word that we use. Like, what's the thing you want for your town the most?
I would say, but
It'd be prosperity.
based on like factual proof that's not where cities want to invest. You know, because I think that if you really wanted to do that, you'd see more actual parks that are owned by the cities, right? Instead, what in the world is that?
That's not.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Some of these people are awesome.
Anyways, but
Yeah.
every developer,
All right.
every city I've ever talked to in every development, if you're doing a development, the city requires you to have a green space in the development that you're doing. So from that standpoint, it seems to me like the city does want the developer to bear the burden of creating the park system for the city because those residents are going to be using it. So
Yeah. That's also true. It's not either or, it's both and.
Yeah.
So we have strong requirements for parks, pocket parks, and, you know, amenities within developments. Especially the larger the development, the more we're going to require, because they won't otherwise. It's really not about we want you to build our park system. It's about this project for it to be highest and best use, for the best to benefit the residents who live there the most. Needs to have good walkable park infrastructure.
So if you were given $50 million today and you had to spend it by the end of this week, how would you spend it?
Well, actually, no. Let's ask. No. Let's ask a real question. Let's ask a real question. So in 2020, you had the most tax revenue you've had. What was the increase in tax revenue?
We just got our certified appraisals back, and so it's coming up. But the big jump that you're talking about is in our
Sales
next year's
tax
budget.
Yeah, right.
Well, sales tax is going up as well, and we estimated conservatively on sales tax, so we're actually up doubly. We're up really good. Plus, we're up more than we thought, which is
Okay.
good for cities to
So-
have surplus.
So what is that? What does that surplus number look like?
Well,
Is that public record?
I think that, you know, in any good year, we're probably generating a surplus of a few $1 million. But that's what does that mean?
So-
you know, we have $134 million budget, and so if you have a $2 million surplus, what are you going to do with that money? Probably not a whole lot.
Right.
You're probably going to be like, all right, that's good. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
So, and I could have had my numbers wrong, and why I said that the amount, based on the amount of money you were getting, it sounded like a lot of money to be spending on parks. So, and I don't remember my words exactly, but I highly doubt I said it was BS. But I could have said the word
No, you
BS, but not bullshit. I would have to pull the tape. But that's neither here nor there. But here's where my point is with that surplus, how much of that is actually spent on parks? And that's where I was like, if you're taking all of that dollars and spending on parks,
Yeah, but that's not the way budgets work.
right? And
You
so
don't-
that's
you don't think of budget surpluses. Oh, now we get to build a park. Parks take years to build. The parks that I'm talking to you that we're getting ready to break ground on, we started 3 years ago on those projects before there was a C word that we cannot be uttered. So our big thing in 2020 and the year you're talking about was, do we kill these projects because we're afraid of the pandemic causing some kind of budgetary catastrophe so that we can't afford to build them, or do we keep moving forward? And that was a dilemma that most of 2020 was all about solving, and we decided to move forward, and I'm glad we did.
Well, if there's anything I've learned is when you have a surplus, you either have to spend it on a copier or chairs. There's no in between.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's surplus. You're thinking from the
Ergonomics.
standpoint of a department. You know, a department when they don't like to have surpluses because that's money that was available to them that gets washed away back into a general fund or something like that.
I tell you what, if you were in Illinois, I know where that surplus would be going.
to mullet. mullet wax.
We've been going on private flights to Las Vegas or something like that.
So question, this is a general audience question. Can everybody put in the comments what you think affordability means? Because I think that's a problem, right? I think everybody has a different conceptually a difference of what affordable is.
Right. The people who are moving in from California think that Kyle's pretty affordable right now.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
Well, and honestly, relative to the other subdivisions, or the other suburbs, even though Kyle's home value is going up, every time you show this is the median price in Kyle, what's Buda?
Yeah.
So what's affordability as it relates to being compared to other cities? Let's talk about Round Rock or Cedar Park and various other places. So
I was showing a house in Round Rock this morning. Every house had many multiples of offers. There were only 7 available that were able to go see it at all.
That's crazy. And they all had offers.
And they were all pending or ready, or they had accepted a contract and hadn't marked it pending in the MLS.
Yeah, that's the answer for all you rabid folks in the comments that just can't wait to talk about the state of our market right now. It's still crazy. Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
since last week.
So the Williamson County median is up 40% at 400,000.
The income is
median for homes.
Home price.
Right. What's the median income now in Williamson County?
I don't know.
If that's increasing, then affordability, it's a correlation. That's where I'm trying to go with it.
Well, we were talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
We need somebody to crunch the data. Who's going to crunch that data for us and make a chart of a ratio of the increase in median income versus the increase in median housing price? Who's on that? Somebody get on that. Hey, get on that.
Right
there. Affordable under 1.4 million. That's brilliant. So, all right. Should we talk merch or should we talk parks? I feel like I cut a cord with you about the park. So I apologize if I offended, but my whole thing about the parks really was like, I'm all about affordability and how we spend our money. If you could show me on paper what the park looks like and how cool it's going to be and how people are going to use it, I'm on board. And so I think that's where I was saying, if you're taking all of that money that you have a surplus and spending on parks, is that the most efficient use? So that's where.
Well, it's not surplus money that's being used to spend. It's budgeted money. It's money that we identified many years ago and are cobbling together to try to make these parks happen. So it's not surplus. Generally speaking, our tax rate has come down. When I was elected,
I had that as a question. What is the standard tax rate?
So when I was elected in 2016, our tax rate was 58 cents and now it's down to 52 cents. So it's either stayed the same or come down every single year. And I don't say that like some prideful thing, because the truth is everybody experiences their taxes going up. But your taxes don't go up proportionately underneath every jurisdiction the same. More than half your taxes are bound by the school districts, and the school districts' tax rates are bound by the state. So that, when you talk about your taxes going up, you should really, again, be looking at the state, because they have their thumb on the scale majorly. But our tax rate has gone down. So you're paying a little bit less out of your overall tax bill to the city today than proportionally as you were back in 2016, when the tax rate was higher and it was a higher percentage of your overall tax bill. So I guess that's something, but it's still not very much compared to the overall cost of living, which has certainly been going up, and the cost of housing, which has been going up exponentially. It's tough.
So you're shut up, Jeremy.
David told me to shut up.
He's talking about the troll.
Oh, okay. All right. There's a Jeremy's papa that's been, and a Jeremy's mama. I have no idea who it is.
I like that picture though. It's a good picture.
Very, very unique. I mean, I'm not mad at it. It's pretty funny. I mean, keep going.
Have you
got no complaints.
Have you seen the Linus Tech Tips meme where he's staring
at the
camera screen?
Love him, man.
Jeremy's face is going to be a new meme. That thinking face.
It's fine.
That's only you and I, Kevin.
Face. Oh yeah, I know. I should stop with the inside jokes.
Yeah.
So you're giving $50 million though. Where's it go tomorrow?
Oh yeah,
by the end of the week. You have to spend $50 million by the end of the week. What are you doing with it for the city of Kyle?
Love that.
One-time dollars or recurring dollars?
No, you get one-time dollars. I'm gonna walk over to my mattress and
Elon Musk. Elon Musk says he's granting $50 million to Kyle for fun, what is it?
Roads and parks.
Yes, roads. I think that's the answer. That's
So,
what I would like to see. The answer.
I have a different answer. I'm curious. I'm curious how you feel about this. And I love this because Travis, you're actually in the position to make this happen. You said you had 68 development leads.
Right. Keep that away from me.
So you have 68 development leads. Imagine if one of those was Elon Musk's Boring Company.
The Boring Company.
The Boring Company. Would it be beneficial? I'm really curious about this, to have a tunnel, a highway underground that can go from Kyle to Gerald or something to that effect. Would it be beneficial to have people to be able to travel from north to south?
Who's driving from Kyle to Gerald?
Well, and that's the question. Where else, or to Georgetown? Sorry, to Georgetown. Yeah. But that's the question. And so you said roads, but you can build a lot more under than you can above, right? We already have we have 35, and they can put a couple toll roads up there, but you can go down as many layers as you want. And so if they had, let's say, 10 lanes below ground with some offshoots where you can get off at these exits, does that solve or help to solve our transportation problem, at least with people that have cars? I think that's a huge opportunity that some of these other cities are exploring, and I think it'd be incredible if we had that opportunity.
Do you see the future of the Austin area as being one where all employment is centralized to the urban core, and the subdivisions are commuter towns that exist to provide cheap labor to the main urban core? Or is the suburbs are the suburbs an area where an economy can prosper in its own right with employment and quality of life initiatives? And so my answer would, long-winded, would be just to say that while I think that transportation problems getting into Austin need to be improved, the more difficult it is to drive into Austin, the more opportunities there are in the city of Kyle to attract employers who want to come here and who can build for cheaper. Cost of a vertical Class A office in Austin is $75 a square foot, and down here in Kyle we might be able to build it for half that. So you can create those kinds of jobs here, and then people maybe don't have to drive, and you get them off the road. So I'm always trying to think, how do you get people off the road? Because I don't want to drive in a tunnel. I don't want to drive on a bridge. I don't want to drive on a freeway. I don't want to drive in a space car, I really just want to stay home and be around my family and friends and create a real value around my community where I live. And so, that's my answer, is get more jobs in Kyle and get more virtual in the way that we do our employment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think virtual is a culture shift, and it was forced upon us by, what do you call it? The thing that happened last year.
The thing.
A lot of people weren't ready, and I feel like, so
it's been good for Kyle. Our restaurants are doing better now than they were at pre-pandemic levels.
Now imagine if it was easy for someone at the Domain to, instead of hanging out at the Domain, they want to spend some time down in Kyle. Right. They don't want to. People don't do it because they don't want to drive to Austin. I think it would increase the amount of, I don't know, I'm not a city planner, but it could potentially increase the industry in Kyle.
Yeah. Hyperloops would be cool. The Lone Star Rail project was a project that got killed back in 2015, 2016. It was a high-speed rail, or not high-speed, but rail along the UP lines from San Antonio to Austin, which would have connected us. And, that's a cool thing. But generally the people that live here, that's not what they're clamoring for. They don't like the traffic in I-35. But if I said, would you be willing to spend an extra $500 a year in taxes in order for us to participate in some kind of fancy system, they generally wouldn't prefer that.
No, this is your $50 million.
And it doesn't matter. They don't even really care if it exists or not. That's why I don't know that the transportation deal is like high speed rail is definitely not the answer, because Amtrak has been doing this for a while, trying to make high speed rail work in major metro areas on the East Coast, and nobody wants to pay for it. And it's not like the rail system in Europe. Like the rail system in Europe, class wise, is way better, and that's why people use it, is because they treat it like a serious mode of transportation. Mm-hmm. Here, it's treated like an afterthought. Like, oh, I guess just go do the high speed rail. I don't know. I don't think we have nearly as much of a transportation problem here as people make it out to be.
Well, I just wish that the city of Austin would spend less time, and Cap Metro, or not Cap Metro, but Campo, the big metropolitan planning organization, and TxDOT would spend less resources trying to widen I-35 and more resources trying to build really good connecting infrastructure between east and west, north and south, outside of I-35, 1626, for example. It would have been really nice to have gotten, TxDOT dollars for that project, as opposed to TxDOT saying, no, we're going to just increase I-35 by 3 more lanes, as if that's ever helped.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% right there. 100%. I think TxDOT should have put more money into the expansion of that, because there is no
they
other
defunded all our projects.
Yeah, that's now, if you want to talk about things that are bullshit, there you go.
Right. I agree with that.
So I agree with you 100% though, when it comes to what Central Texas, Kyle, whatever, what our area is that transportation isn't this metropolis where we need trails, all these rails, underground rails. And then earlier you also said that the ridership, when you were doing this in Kyle, the ridership numbers weren't there. And this is my biggest issues with Prop A, is that the ridership numbers are highly in doubt. The cost of it is highly in doubt. And the time frame that they're actually going to build it, I mean, by the time they actually build whatever it is, whatever technology they're using is going to be obsolete. And then on top of that, the biggest issue is that you are going to tunnel down under Lady Bird Lake. We have more caves. We couldn't even build the 45 extension next to my house, because every time they got a certain point, they had to fill in another cave. And then what do you have to do to fill in a cave? You have to fill it full of concrete. And so they couldn't even put the lacrosse bridge. So, I mean, everybody, gets, one person in particular gets upset with me for going ahead and saying that I totally disagree with Prop A, but I also feel we need some sort of transportation, but that bill was not it.
I don't think
it was.
I'm with you, Jeremy, 100%. Actually, I don't think that tunnels are our solution. And I like a lot of what Elon Musk does. Don't get me wrong. I think he's an incredible, and he will be probably a long-term incredible philanthropist to the community of Austin, as long as he's going to be living here. And he has a vision for himself of solving all of the world's biggest problems all at once and before he dies. Like, that's just the reality is he wants to make the biggest impact on this world while he's still here. Some of those things are probably going to come to fruition, and some of them probably won't. But what they will do is they'll lay the groundwork for people to take that, and maybe 100 years from now, they're implementing those things. We are so far away from a reliable underground network of transportation. I like the idea that people are thinking about it, but we're just so far away from that. We don't even have good, reliable above ground transportation. You think they're going to be able to put it underground and make it efficient?
I have lots to say about it.
That's
not what this is about. That's not what this is about, right? It's about affordable housing, this live stream. We need to set one for transportation or something like that.
Well, I mean, you're right. But
drive safe, David. Drive safe to travel and to work.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
I'm with you. I'm with you, though. Ian, I think that's right.
All right.
Tangents.
What other questions do you have about affordability? We've taken 2 hours of Travis's time. I don't want to kill his time too much longer. Again, I do want to thank you for coming on. I mean, I feel like we've gotten a lot of really good answers out of you. Obviously, you can't answer every question that everybody has. I mean, that's not your job, but I do really do appreciate you jumping on here. Thank you. And you've taken a few darts from Kevin and then some darts from me as well. Ian's over there just looking pretty. So
darts, I just wait to throw them.
So before we get too much further, though, I want to see the questions, but I do want to add this to the stream. The Real Migo merch. Here it is. I had to wait for David to leave because I don't want him to buy any. But so here's the Real Migo merch. We got more stuff coming. We do got sweatshirts. Like, look how sweet this is. I'm thinking I'm going to get me a couple of the gray one myself. Travis, which one should we send you? The gray one or the red one?
Ooh.
Or blue?
If you rock a Real Migos,
yeah, we'll send it to you.
Or a hoodie.
Yeah, we'll send it to you. What color? You tell me what color. So there's the merch. I'll put the link in here. We are going to go ahead and change this. It'll be the real. Oh, my emails. It will be the Real Amigos website. I do have that. I just haven't gotten it up yet. So we'll switch this, but I'll toss the link in here in a minute. But yeah, buy some Real Amigos merch. It's out. Ian worked really hard on it. So everybody thank Ian for that.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for your hard work. Travis has been an amazing guest, right? Like really.
Oh, you've been incredible.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for Kyle, knowing that you're, heading up all the development,
Well, I appreciate
vision
that.
down there.
I kind of think of myself as the person who's trying to it's my job to think 20 years into the future. I live 20 years into the future. I'm just trying to create the world that I see, and it's not easy to do. It's super challenging. But I enjoy selling Kyle. I enjoy loving Kyle and promoting Kyle. We got a great town down here. So
yeah,
I've long said it's one of the most underrated cities, because everybody wants to talk about all the big development and Round Rock. I've always said on this channel, Round Rock's the most overrated. So you're welcome for that.
That's why everybody's moving to Kyle now, is because
you're welcome. I didn't think Jeremy Mandup, when called out, he should be a politician. I thought Jeremy didn't. All right. I mean, I don't know how else I could have manned up, but I appreciate the info there. Travis, do you think I was fair? I just want to ask.
Fair what?
Well, just fair, because I mean, the only really negative thing I think I've said was on the parks thing, I would have liked to seen Uptown closer to I-35 personally, but
oh yeah, no, you're good, man. You're good.
All right, cool. I want to make sure we're good. Oh, my girlfriend's on. Look at this, Jeremy's girlfriend. That's the best one yet.
That's a very caring haircut, isn't it?
That's awesome, man.
So let me see your manager. Take me to the manager haircut.
Travis didn't sound so cool with affordable housing. Oh,
it's tricky. No, it's fair. That's fair. Yeah. The developers who I talked to today about affordable housing didn't think I was too keen on affordable housing either. So I get it. Affordable housing is really challenging because it's a tax subsidy. And it's not always what it's cracked up to be. So, the lady that I was talking to at one time, she said, "Look, this is a great project. I would it's got a pool. I would love to be here." And I said, "You wouldn't be allowed to live here." That's the idea is it creates artificial markets based on moving tax dollars around. And I don't think that is the ultimate answer to affordability. I don't know what it is. And we do affordable housing projects, but we're not trying to do them all over town because we don't think that affordable housing projects are the ultimate solution to making everyone's quality of life better in our community. It's just not.
I would like to see, and maybe I have a vested interest in this, but I would like to see communities embrace and make cool again the mobile home community. That's just my personal thought. I think mobile home communities are an incredible answer to affordability. But unfortunately, if you approach any city right now, they don't want anything to do with them. They won't help you develop them. They don't want them in there. Nobody wants them in there. But I think that there's a lot of growth that can be made with mobile home communities.
Yeah, we have some double wide communities in Kyle, just a few. We don't give them, non-foundation homes, so to speak. We don't give them a lot of support. They don't. It's just different. The value of the asset moves with the home and isn't stabilized to the ground. There's lots of weird technical reasons why, but we had a guy who wanted to come in, and my brother-in-law built tiny homes back in the day, a long time ago, and we had a guy coming in a few years ago that wanted to do like a tiny home park, and we were interested and open to the concept. But the challenge is in the world of government, it's all about entitlements. So if we say you're allowed to build a particular type, like tiny homes, you can put them out, but how many? And do you have to build roads? And you're going to put them all on septic? And so our mentality was, let's create a zoning category called tiny homes, and let's create some rules and regulations that are really specific and unique to tiny homes, so that you can actually have a tiny home neighborhood. For example. That particular developer at that time wasn't interested in coordinating some kind of subdivision standard for tiny homes in the city. rather just wanted the entitlements. And then we would have lost all control, and it could have just been, they would have been allowed to put anything they wanted out there, and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, because their subdivision rules are different for tiny homes and mobile homes. So we ended up saying no as well. So it's just not as clean cut as us saying, or for myself, the city of Kyle saying, we don't want mobile homes or we don't want tiny homes in our communities, because that's not fair. It's that we don't want to allow unregulated development to take place in our communities where things can sound like a good idea and in a few years' time be blighted beyond repair just because we gave them those entitlements.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons I like mobile home communities so much are for a community like Kyle. It is okay. I understand that the view is that these homes are not good permanent solutions, but they're not supposed to be. What they're supposed to be is a medium-term way to develop an area that makes property affordable and not completely use up that land for its highest and best use forever and ever. A mobile home community goes in. The average lifespan of a mobile home, most people don't know, is 65 years. So over 65 years, you can develop that. And then at 65 years from now, that land probably has a higher and better use because of the natural growth of the city. That's why, I'm not saying it's the only answer to this, but I would love to see communities like Kyle, like Dripping Springs, like Buda, embrace that type of affordable housing, as well as high-rise type in more dense areas.
Yeah. Well, it's close. I'm in agreement with you. I'm not in complete disagreement, I should say. Yeah. I do think that density and is certainly part of the answer. So,
well, that's
mobile
actually,
homes is this type.
I had this question up here. What are those? She said weird, but what are
Urbana?
Those small homes? Yeah, what is? I've driven by it so many times. I've never even
Urbana is a concept that company they've got, I don't know, a few different projects going on around the country. They've got one in Austin that they just did and completed, and now the one in Kyle that they completed. It's horizontal multifamily, single family multifamily. Is that a thing? Can you call it single family multifamily? It's detached, where you don't have anyone living above you, you don't have anyone living below you, but it's a rental, and they're generally 1 and 2 bedroom units, very small, with a little kitchen and a small living room, just like an apartment, about the same size. But you have ground floor access, and you park very close by. So it's a different style of home. It hasn't been met with the greatest reception here.
Why is that?
Are they for sale, or are they?
They're rentals.
They're rentals. Yeah,
rentals.
It's multifamily. It's the way you need to think of it, but it's just different. So it kind of depends on your mentality. If you're willing to think outside the box, you'll realize that there's a butt for every seat. That's the motorcycle word. I'm from the motorcycle industry, but there's a demand for a product like that, and I think that there are types of people who would love to live there. But it kind of has an army barracks look to it. Yeah. Not a lot of amenities.
It looks like a lot of just stamped houses that all look just like one's face this way, the next is this way. I found it interesting. I figured that's what it was, is kind of like a rental.
Well, in the greater Plum Creek area, the city of Kyle doesn't have as much regulatory control as you might think. A lot of those entitlements were given to the Plum Creek developers back in 1997. So they have their own architectural review committee. And so those projects like Urbana never came before City Hall for approval. I think it might not have even gotten approval. So it's a big PUD. In other words, like there's density requirements in various places they can put different product types, but they have just complete latitude to make a lot of their own decisions underneath sort of a master framework. And frankly, who are we to complain? Because a lot of the nicest development we have is in the greater Plum Creek area. They've won national builder awards, and the original Plum Creek, and they do, generally speaking, require a sort of a high architectural output. It's just Urbana seems right now, at least, to not be to that standard. But we'll see. You gotta wait. Anytime something's being built, you gotta kind of wait till it's over and start to try to get a sense of how it's going to fit into the bigger picture. So if the entirety of Northern Kyle was all Urbana, that'd be a problem. But one little Urbana, maybe not the end of the world. We'll see.
What about vertical? So Elizabeth's been very passionate in here. Thank you, Elizabeth. Oh, and look, Passmore. I said passion. All right, whatever. Why resist vertical expansion? Are you resisting vertical expansion in Kyle?
No, we recruited aggressively. So vertical development. So have you ever heard the phrase horizontal mixed use?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a drinking game in Kyle. So that's what we have a drink called the horizontal mixed use. It's what developers come to us when they want to build apartments, and they say that these apartments will activate the retail. So can this prime retail space become apartments? That's horizontal mixed use. We don't go for that too much. We're more interested in vertical mixed use. But the problem is the suburbs the price of the land is not expensive enough. This is not the land's too cheap, not too expensive. It's too cheap, and therefore you're not defraying very much of your land cost into the different floors. The actual cost of construction is the barrier to building vertical, not the land cost. And that's a challenge for us, because we would love to. We have no height restrictions on I-35. You can build 7-10-story buildings all day long. We have never, since I've been around, we've never told any developer that they couldn't build that high. There are times like where maybe a multifamily project will want to come in right next to single family, and we have rules about buffers and things like that. But generally speaking, vertical mixed use is a development style that we want to see more of, and that's partly what Plum Creek and Uptown is all about, because those primary core urban areas, that core of Uptown, which it's not there yet, but it's almost there. We want that to be the densest part of our city, just making more value out of each square inch. Again, that's what puts downward pressure on taxes. Each square inch is more valuable.
It's both. I mean, you have to have a comprehensive approach to all housing, though, right? So it's not just one. Right. There's not one solution, and that's why I think, I'm getting flamed for saying mobile homes, but I'm not wrong on some of this level. I'm not saying it's the only solution, but some of these solutions, like you just mentioned, the land is cheap enough; it doesn't justify high density yet, because the developer's not going to look at super high density when he knows he can get a much cheaper parcel of land slightly out of Kyle. So eventually, I guess Kyle's going to have suburbs then too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's called the ETJ. Yeah. Sunfield, Shadow Creek, those developments that are out there, out of city, and the ETJs. Those are our suburbs.
Yeah.
So.
Full of mobile homes.
Well, 20 years ago, the city of Kyle was 95% comprised of single-family residential. Mm-hmm. So when you take the taxable value of the city of Kyle and you look at how we're getting our property taxes, 95% of the dollars we collected were from single-family residential. That number has consistently come down, while commercial and multifamily have come up. So we're becoming more diverse in our portfolio, and that's good. The multifamily is something like 13%. Commercial is up to 18%, which right now, as a part of our overall portfolio, is at its highest ever. And we actually are hopeful that number will get to 20%, which would be really good in the next year or two. That's what we're shooting for, because then we're drawing tax revenue from multiple sources. We got sales tax, we got commercial property tax, we got inventory tax from commercial, we've got multifamily that we're taxing, and single family. And you put that combination of all different development types. You've got some mobile homes, you've got some tiny homes, maybe, although we don't really have that much yet. But you put it all together, and hopefully that's a strong, prospering local economy. That's what drives down affordability. But it's just not easy. Yeah, it's not easy.
You guys realize tiny homes and mobile homes are the same effing thing, right?
I do.
Tiny home is just the millennials' way of calling it a small mobile home.
Right.
Is it, Ian? Is this what you think Kyle should look like?
No, I'm just.
The stacks.
It made me think of Ready Player One, which is
the stacks and Ready Player One. That's right.
Yeah.
That's vertical mobile homes. That's why
it is. It was a combination of all of it.
Ian, did you ever find your hat in Hawaii?
Oh no! It flew off the catamaran when we were flying at 75 knots or whatever it was.
75 knots. You do realize that's like 60 miles an hour, right?
Yeah. Well, what does that mean? Yeah. And the whales that we were watching jump out of the water must have grabbed them. There's a dolphin somewhere that has it. It's unfortunate.
What's up, Camille? Camille's house is going on the market this week. 700,000, 78704. I don't know if it was that much. She said 6,599, I think. But welcome back. All right, guys. Let's end it there. Travis, man, I really do appreciate you coming on. You answered a lot of questions. This was a really, really great feed. I think we touched on a lot of the affordability issues. You answered some really good questions. Kevin, you had some great questions. Ian, as always, your hat looked great. But hey, man, Travis, again, thank you so much, man. Any final words?
No, thanks, Jeremy. You guys are doing good. It's not easy to be a realtor or in the real estate industry right now. But at the same time, there's lots of opportunity everywhere. So hopefully the folks that live here currently don't see it all gloom and doom and see a lot that the changing market environment gives rise to opportunities. And that's certainly something that's happening right now. So while the crisis of affordability is real, it's what's driving it is opportunity. So hopefully we, a lot of folks that listen to you guys will realize that there really is opportunity to prosper in the greater Austin area, and particularly in Kyle, Texas.
I think this is gonna encourage a lot of people to open up their mind to living in Kyle now. I really do.
Awesome.
I think this is good for your community, especially that they know that you're advocating so well for the city.
I agree.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thanks. Ian?
Incredible.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure, and I like that you had so much wisdom. I love that. I love learning information, and I think that's why we all work well together as Real Migos, is because we all absorb as much knowledge and work to disseminate that to our audience. So thank you again for helping.
Cool. Thanks. See ya.